Hello, everyone. This is Jennifer Williams with LUXE Life, and I am also a real estate agent with Coldwell Banker Global Luxury on the Gold Coast in the lovely city of Chicago. Today on my podcast, I have the pleasure of having Supreme Auctions, Jennie. Go ahead and give us our spiel. Who are you, and what brings you here?
Good morning, Jennifer. Great to see you today. Well, as you mentioned, I am with Supreme Auctions. My official title is President of Supreme Auctions. I co-founded the company in 2007. So we are coming up on 14, 15 years strong here. We found a niche in the world of traditional real estate. I've been a broker for well over 15 years myself.
Wow.
Brokered in several states, and bring my experience to the table to the company for the marketing aspect. So we are twofold, on having our sales team and then having our big marketing arm, and that's what I head up for the company.
Very nice. And we got into contact with your affiliation now with Coldwell Banker. And tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, we were pretty excited about that and feel very honored after a few years of working with various brokerages across the country, as we continue to do. We were contacted by the then Vice President of Global Luxury, Craig Hogan, and he had asked, is there an opportunity here to form a partnership? So we had many conversations, as you can imagine, and nothing really happens overnight when you're dealing with a global company like Coldwell Banker, and come to realize that he had researched all the different auction companies that various agents through Coldwell Banker had experiences with. And he did his due diligence on the auction companies that he was attracted to. And he made his decision based upon his findings and decided to select Supreme Auctions. We're very honored, and we formed our partnership with Coldwell Banker Global Luxury, and it was announced at Gen Blue at the Marriott Marquis in New York, I think in September of 2021. So thrilled to be partnering with a global company, as we can represent other properties outside of the US as well. So it's a great partnership, and now we have a certification course that we make available to Coldwell agents, and looking forward to the journey moving forward. Since then, we've chatted many times with the now new Vice President of Global Luxury, Michael Outnew, a wonderful gentleman, and looking forward to partnering with various different regions of the country as well as outside.
That's fantastic. That is one of the certifications, my most recent certification that I'm proud of. I did become certified as a Supreme Auction agent. Just to add that to my tool belt of skills. I love it. Learned so much.
Yeah.
You think you know everything after almost 30 years in business, and you don't. So it's fabulous. One of the things, main reasons why, besides the fact of the connectivity, I also wanted to bring awareness of the benefits of taking, there's so many misconceptions with auctions, especially the luxury auctions. No, it's not a fire sale. No, it's not something that's a foreclosure. So tell me a little bit, tell the audience a little bit about why choose Supreme Auctions for your listing. If we have a listing to go from the seller's aspect, and then how much easier it makes it for the agent, for the real estate agent in the transaction, bringing on Supreme Auctions.
Absolutely. And to your point, Jennifer, the first thought for a lot of people, the misconceptions of the word auction when it comes to real estate is bankruptcy, is going to the courthouse steps. Something must have gone wayward for the property. When we are working in the luxury arena for real estate, that is not the case. For many of the clients that we work with, or I would say 99.9% of them that we work with, it is not any kind of a hardship situation. It's simply that ultra high net worth individuals have the opportunity to have 2, 4, 6 homes dotted throughout the country and throughout the globe these days. And for once we have found that, every once in a while they want to make a change. And it's not as easy to sell these higher end multi-million dollar properties in a short span of time than it is other properties that we see every day in the MLS as agents. So for the sellers, it really is a time value of money. So when the properties are listed onto the market through their current listing agent, like yourself, Jennifer, it may take them longer to sell their property. If they're specifically, if they're in a gated community, you don't have any drive-by traffic, or if somebody finds the property as a buyer, not 87+% are starting their searches for real estate online these days, and they can't get into that community, so it's a missed opportunity. It's also a missed opportunity for the seller because they can't expose their home to a wider audience. So that time value of money, while they may not owe very much, if any, most of our sellers are free and clear on their properties, there's still the upkeep, the utilities, the taxes, and everything that goes with maintaining a multi-million dollar home. And upwards, that can be upwards of $250,000 a year. So it's not free for them to hold the home while the home is being sold through put up for sale. So when you take that process, and through Supreme Auctions Accelerated Marketing Program, we're able to reduce those days on market down to 60 days, start to finish. You have a huge savings there. I mentioned before, upward, 250,000 it could carry. You're saving a substantial amount of money there. So the sellers enjoy that accelerated process. To the second half of your question, we don't list properties as an auction company when Supreme Auctions take the property on. We work with and we partner with agents like yourself. So whatever the listing agreement is between our agents and their respective sellers, that remains the same. And we just come in as your advisor, if you will, as a marketing arm, as an accelerated marketing program to help you expose your client's property to a global audience, or a more of a wider global audience, more pinpointed, and to be able to attract the most amount of buyers. So we become your expert in that field and work with the agents. So the sellers really seem to like it. They appreciate the sense of urgency that it drives buyers to take action, which for these ultra multi-million dollar homes are not so doing these days.
That's true. That's very true. And so the comfort level that the seller gets with choosing Supreme Auctions and going the auction route, not only they already have a trusted agent likely that they bring in, and then the trusted agent then brings in Supreme Auctions and says, here, this is another service that I offer, or another partnership that I have, if you will. And I think it also sets apart that agent from so many others. And we bring you in, you're already trusted, and have that flow, that continued flow. My marketing coupled with your marketing together really gives that great exposure. So it makes that sense of urgency, puts it out there, gets everybody excited. Who doesn't want to go to bid on an auction? I mean, the excitement, you get all the way, get so excited all the way towards the end and see if you won. So from the seller's standpoint as well, let's take a look though at what the costs are. Are there any costs? Who does the costs and fees outside of the real estate brokerage, like my listing agreement? So what is it customary? What could a seller expect with choosing Supreme Auctions as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll start with the listing agent for yourselves. As I mentioned, Supreme Auctions takes on the marketing piece. So no longer will the cost be incurred by the agent to do any marketing there, unless they want to just elaborate from the pieces that we're providing to them and want to extend out from our marketing. The only thing we require of our agents is photography, which most of the times are already in place because they have the listings, unless the listing and the marketing agreement is signed congruently at the same time. The seller we always like to provide our buyers with a packet of due diligence because we are dealing in a very shorter time frame. In that due diligence packet, we ask for the seller to work with the listing agent to obtain those items. So the largest expense I would probably say in there, which isn't a huge expense, Jennifer, is probably a home inspection. That way, because the buyers are dealing with a very short time period, they have all the seller's disclosure, the home inspection, a preliminary title report, a survey, a plat map, if there's any utilities that are coming in and having a lien on the property for any utilities that might run through the property, anything like that that we would like the buyers to know that they would otherwise obtain after a purchase and sales contract has been signed. We like to have that provided up front. If they want to have their own home inspection done, they can do so, but that's on their point from the buyer's standpoint. But for the seller, we always suggest and recommend that they go ahead and get a third-party home inspection done. Then there's no ifs, ands, or buts, and the buyer can see exactly what they're buying because the properties are being sold as is, where is. So the buyer feels very comfortable looking at that report that the seller has provided. Always done by a third party. Same goes with the title report and everything like that. So they can see that the property is either free and clear or there's a small mortgage on the property. The other expense to the seller is a marketing fee that differs depending on the property. And the reason why we have the seller pay an upfront marketing fee is that has the seller vested in the sale of the property. Similarly to yourself as an agent, you spent time, effort, money, marketing materials, taking everything together to be able to expend your time to be able to advertise the property, and you're vested in the sale because you know once the sale happens, your commissions are then going to help pay for your time up front and then expense up front to cover those costs. The same thing goes with the seller. We want the seller vested in the sale of the property because I don't want to put my whole marketing team to work for the seller to then turn around, as we know they do sometimes. You may not have had one and say, oh, I've changed my mind here. And meanwhile, you're out $5,000 or $10,000 for all the marketing that you've done.
Yes.
So it lets us know that the seller truly is vested and motivated to sell their property. Now, they're going to have that credited back to them when the property sells. So imagine it like an attorney retainer fee. The only difference is if the attorney doesn't win your case, it doesn't come back to you. So
very true, very true. Because when we close, and that's when it comes back, and which is a good point. It's them also being the seller being invested in this together. We've joined again. Once again, I go back to the partnership. We have joined all together as a team to take this to close. It's 60 days versus the carrying time sometimes on luxury properties, depending on your location, it could be 6, 9, 12 months, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I know of one that just sold not too far from us that in Chicago, 5 years. It was on the market 5 years.
I can actually beat that. There was a property I know went up for sale 12 years ago in Colorado, and it just closed. Actually, a couple of weeks ago in Colorado, it just sold. And that had been on the market for over 12 years. So to your point, Jennifer, yes. And then, of course, Supreme has a lot of time, effort, and funds invested into each property, having a whole team behind every property. We're more of a boutique feel as opposed to a big, wide mass, put as many properties up on the auction block as we can. We prefer to be, a little more selective. So 1 to 3 properties a month, so we can really give each of our clients, when we partner with our agents, that white glove feeling, so that we're really focused and being able to really detail down on who the buyers are for them. So there's a lot of funds invested from Supreme Auction standpoint as well for each auction.
The properties that are on your website are fabulous. The ones that I've seen, I know there are some that a lot of them highest record high. We've seen a lot of sold properties that are on the website, as well as there are a couple that are still out there that are still on the market. They're still available on the market for whatever reason. It didn't come to pass, but it's still marketable. It's still
COVID.
out there.
One of them was because of COVID. You're exactly right. a property down in Fort Lauderdale. It was a penthouse, and literally it happened right as COVID hit, at the very onset of COVID, and the whole entire building shut down. They weren't allowing anyone in the building. So how can you show a property if you can't get anyone in there?
You can't. So they say virtually, oh, we can do a virtual showing, and that's great. But at the end of the day, everybody really wants to get in and physically see, get the feel, see it. Because our photos sometimes are so fabulous that we make things just really pop, and we wanted you to get in. We have to have the people come into the homes themselves, in the estates, and get that feeling, get that energy. So, and I've seen the home inspection reports that are on the Supreme auctions, and my goodness, how detailed. Far more detailed than what your average home inspection report is, in my opinion. So then let's switch to the buyer side, because the buyer then, now they have the title search, the preliminary title search, they have all of this wealth of information. So the buyer has that sense of confidence moving forward, because this is an as-is sale. And so that, in my opinion, they have that ability to go forward with the purchase, and they're not quite going out on a limb, if you will. Where typical auctions, you don't get all these reports. You don't see all this detailed information. So tell us a little bit more about how, from the buyer, what the buyer's process is. I am, as an agent, say I have a buyer that's interested in a property that's listed, and how does my buyer go about saying, yes, I want to place a bid on this in this home? How do they go about that?
Right. And you're exactly right, Jennifer, to your point. They do feel comfortable moving forward. And simply, we always say, from any of our project managers or any of the people that are on site showing the property, if you don't feel comfortable moving forward, please don't, because we're not here to strong arm you in any way. We want to be able to provide the buyer with everything that they need to make an educated decision if they want to purchase this home. So the buyer's process, as most homes, probably start online. They'll, reach out to us, want to come and see the property or get a little bit more information before they do. Most of the time, I would say 80% of them will come to the property. Not all. We've had a gentleman bidding from Ireland who never stepped foot into the property. From your standpoint of what you mentioned before, FaceTime and walking live walk through the property is a wonderful thing these days. People rely on technology and very comfortable with it. So once the buyer has ultimately made the decision that they want to move forward, we provide them with the process, the terms of auction, if you will. So we walk them through the terms of the auction, what do they need to do to start with, then next step 2, next step 3, next step 4. So for them, as I mentioned before, without sounding too redundant, it is buyer due diligence prior to registering to bid, prior to placing an offer on the property. And what that simply means is that when they do decide that they would like to register to bid, they are doing so freely at their own will, knowing that what's expected of them. So in each of our auctions, the buyers are expected to put a non-refundable during bidding time earnest money deposit up in order to bid. If they're not, when I say non-refundable, when they're named the highest bidder, that initial earnest money deposit becomes non-refundable. Obviously, if we have 6, 8, 10, 12 bidders and you're not the winning bidder, then those funds get returned to them. Supreme Auctions does not hold any funds. It's with a third-party title and escrow company or an attorney of choice who will be holding those funds. So the auction company doesn't hold any funds. So the buyer puts up initial earnest money in order to bid on the property. They sign a bidder registration, which walks them through all the terms of the auction, what's expected of them. They're informed that there is a buyer premium. All of our auctions are 10%, so a 10% buyer premium. And what that means, Jennifer, for those that may not know, is if a property sells at $5 million and the highest bid is $5 million, there's going to be a 10% fee added to the high bid. So in this example, it would be 5.5 million. That's the fee that a buyer is willing to pay to have the privilege to purchase at auction. Similarly to Sotheby's of London, Art and Antiquities, Christie's of New York, all these high-end automobile companies and all the different companies that handle high-end beautiful antiques. Very, very similar. That
Very exclusive, very exclusive.
very, very exclusive opportunity. So once a buyer has registered to bid, they bid online. We have an online bidding platform that makes it a global affair for everybody, and everybody can see each other's bids. No names, of course. Everyone's given a paddle number, so everyone has their animosity. They are all anonymous. They are determined as the highest bid. The buyer then has to put 10% of their high bid into escrow, and then they have 30 days to close on the property because they've had all their due diligence up front. They know what they're getting themselves into. They know the property. They know the lay of the land if the property is coming with land. They know if there's a septic tank. They know what the survey is. They know everything about the property and feel very, very comfortable moving forward. So they know everything up front. So there's no surprises for them. We are very, very transparent process. And we answer every question. If they're working with an agent, we want the agent to know, and the agent also signs the bidder registration contract because we want to make sure that they get their just due compensation and their commission as well.
And that's the other though. It really is a win-win for all three parties: the seller, the buyer, and the agent. Whether you're the listing agent or four parties, if you're the listing agent or the buyer's agent, it depends, because sometimes people have seen myself promote properties that are all over the world, and I have had the questions, how can you do this? Because as a buyer's agent, I can promote worldwide, which is another thing that brings me into the love of Supreme Auctions. There's properties everywhere. It's not just in my own one little region here of Illinois in the Midwest. So let's also talk about the buyer viewing the property. Are there set dates? How do they go about getting that confidence? Whether it's by FaceTime, and I've sold properties by FaceTime as well, which is, I think, a beautiful thing. But I'm a buyer. I want to come in. I want to fly into a property in Fort Lauderdale or fly into Colorado, wherever it is, and view the property. How do I go about doing that?
Absolutely. Well, what we do for our sellers process is most of the time our sellers are still living in the homes. And they want to enjoy the homes. So we try not to disturb them or give them a phone call and say, we need the home in 30 minutes. We like to have preset time so they can schedule family time and schedule time, if they're coming home from a long day. Most of our clients are CEOs and executives of companies or professional athletes. They've got their own agenda too. So we don't want them to have any surprises. We typically at Supreme Auctions, Jennifer, like to schedule our showings on weekends. We find it's the most convenient time that our clients can step out of the homes, and they can take their pets with them as well. We always say, if you've got a dog, a cat, a bird, the buyer may be put off by that, and they may be allergic, or they just want to have their own time in the home. So typically we schedule on weekends, and if we allow one day during the week. If we have out of state or out of country guests coming in that would like to see the home, we allot one period of time on one day of the week during Monday through Friday for people to come in. And then we set up by appointment whenever possible, so we can have a dedicated staff member available to them, and we give them private showings, and so we can answer all their questions. And they feel very comfortable doing that because they know that there's not a lot of people walking beside them, and they feel very comfortable being able to ask any pertinent questions that are important to them.
Sure. Then they get that individual attention. They get that exclusive attention, which is really what we're going for. That's what we are providing, is that top-notch platinum service, gold standard, delivering exactly what you would expect.
Right. And for the agent, exactly. And for the listing agent, they're an integral part of what we do. So that's why we created the certification course. And that's another conversation. But the agent is an integral part of what we do. So we always like to have them on site, or a member of their team, or a member of their office that they want if they're not able to come, because obviously they've got other listings that they're taking care of as well. But we always like to make sure that we have a licensed agent on site with our auction managers, so the agent knows so much about the property and inside and out, and all the ifs, ands, or buts, and all the extra details. And then the auction manager is there to be able to answer any particular terms of the auction and any questions that the buyer and the buyer's agent, if they have one, have any questions about the process.
Wonderful. Well, we're gonna find out how do we find out more about Supreme Auctions? How does someone get a contact, whether it's an agent who wants to understand and learn more about the certification process with Supreme Auctions, or it's a seller wanting to find out if there's an agent close to them and wherever it is they are in the world, certified agent, or if it's a buyer that wants to see exactly what properties do you have. So if you can give us a little bit of your contact information, also website
Absolutely.
where they can go to. So how do we get more?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first place to go to is that wonderful thing called Google, and they can find us online at supremeauctions.com. And we have a full website there that shows them upcoming auctions that are coming up, properties that have recently been sold. And then it will walk them through, depending on the type of persona that they are, if they're a seller, if they're a buyer, or an agent. There's different sections that are very easily being able to find from the menu, which gives them, they don't have to go through a whole labyrinth trying to get to the piece that is pertinent to them. So we break the website down, I feel, in a very clear way that they can navigate their way to the information that they need in just a couple of clicks, if that. And so for our buyer section, we walk them through what that process looks like if they're interested in a property. For the sellers, we have their process as well, and the agents too. And then specifically, if I jump to the agents for a moment, we do have a certification course that if they would like to know and become more familiar with auctions, whether working with our company or another company, if they're representing a buyer, it just helps them get familiar with certain terms and what they should be asking to best represent their buyer. Doing their fiduciary responsibility, so they can feel confident when they're working with an auction house. For agents that are looking to potentially sell a property with us and partner with Supreme Auctions, like our partnership with Coldwell Banker. I was actually talking to a Coldwell Banker agent yesterday in Missouri that had quite a beautiful property on 120 acres. And so we have those conversations every day. They were able to find us through the website, through the agent section. They were able to pick up the phone, give us a call. Emails are on the website as well. So the contact information is readily available. Plus, there's also an inquiry form for each section for buyer, seller, agent, respectively. They can fill out a form online. Most of the time, I would say one of our representatives are back in contact with them within 30 minutes or less.
Wonderful. So right away. So it's very expedient because time is money. We want to
Time is
catch, we
money.
want to get, we want to, and it shows also how serious you are, because again, we're talking 60 days. Everything has to click, 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 click. So right from the very start, you set that tone of your clients, buyers or sellers, and your agents are that important, because again, your Supreme Auctions, we could sit there in an inbox somewhere forever, but you don't. You choose to be proactive and to right away show, I'm here to be a part of this and to be a partnership with everyone here to take this transaction and close this deal. And that's huge. That's so huge for an agent, whether I'm representing my buyer or my seller in myself. It sets that confidence. So, well, thank you so much for our interview today, and look forward to hearing from you again in the future. And again, if anybody has any questions, you'll find Supreme Auctions on Google. It's very easy, and their website is very, very easy to use as well. It is laid out, I can say, right away. You can see the properties that they have represented, as well as everything with the inquiry form. Super easy. Click, click, click. You can get to where you need to. And that concludes our podcast for today. This is LUXE Life, and I'm your host, Jennifer Williams. Thanks a lot and look forward to hearing from you again.